Welcome to Imagine Crafts. Annie Collins here with a lovely spring card. We're going to go for more soft pastel colors. Let's go over some of the materials I used to create this card. Let's go over the inks first. We're going to use our VersaMark Ink because we're going to be embossing with our emboss in gold. We're going to use some Memento Inks, and we're going to use Lulu Lavender, Lilac Posies, Pear, Tart, and New Sprout. We're also going to bring in this Irresistible craft spray. This creates a nice texture on our card. We're going to have some Tart tape to put our card together. And the stamp we'll be using today is from Altenew, and it's called Rosie, Posy. And I already went ahead and cut our front panel out. I die cut a hexagon from it. And I also have a really thin piece of craft foam that I'll be using to give a little lift to our card. Some white cardstock for our stamping, lavender layering cardstock, and an A2 side folding heavyweight card. Some other materials I'm going to be using since we're going to watercolor today. I'm going to use a little watercolor brush, water, some masking tape, a coffee filter for our embossing powder, and a heat tool. Alright, so I'm going to clear everything off our desk so that we can get started on our project. We're going to start with our stamping. We're going to use some anti-static powder tool here. And yes, that was a crazy amount of powder that came out. First it wouldn't come out, then it came a lot out. But that's crafting. And I'm going to ink up our stamp with our VersaMark. And I'm going to stamp it. Now you can't see very well here because it's a clear sticky ink. But once I apply the embossing powder will stick to the ink, and you can now see the image. I'm going to heat set this in a moment. First, I'm going to funnel back my extra embossing powder because I want to go ahead and do the same thing to our sentiment. So I'm going to make use of that extra powder, use my brush and apply it to my cardstock, center my sentiment, which is the nice hello here. I'm going to pick it up with my stamping platform and ink it up again using our VersaMark ink. I'm going to stamp it twice to make sure I got a nice image there, and then I'm going to add our embossing powder. Now I'm going to heat set both of these. I always start from the back and then I work from front and back just to minimize the warping of my cardstock. You're going to heat this until all of the embossing powder is completely melted. So it's going to go from dull to this beautiful shine. So here's it now, all melted and nice and shiny. We're going to set our flowers aside for a second, and we're going to bring in our card front panel with just a sentiment. And I have my splat box because we're going to use the Irresistible spray here. And I just shook it up really well to get everything really nice and going, all the micas that are in there, and then all the color pigments. And then I'm just going to remove the nozzle and just flick some little splatters onto our card panel here. This will be a nice textured splatters. This isn't just going to be so flat like you normally do when you do watercolor or any other kind of splatters. These actually dry with dimension. Alright, so I'm going to set that aside to dry while we go ahead and start working on our flower panel. I'm using some masking tape in this mini clipboard to flatten our paper down while we watercolor. I'm going to start with Lulu Lavender, and I'm going to put a little bit onto my craft mat. This is my Imagine Crafts craft mat. And I'm going to just smush it on to the mat, use my water and spray little spritz of water on there, use my paintbrush, pick it up, and I'm just going to go ahead and basically messy watercolor. The best part about this is that all of the embossing holds our watercolor just where we need it to be. Now I'm going to go ahead and pick up some of this Lilac Posies, which is darker and more pink. But that's okay because we're only using a little bit of it. We're going to use a little bit in the center of our flowers and in those little crevices almost to create our dimension. See these little crevices right here? I'm just adding a little bit right in there. And then we'll soften it back up in a moment. And don't forget that little bud on the end there. So I'm going to wipe off the extra, come back in with a little Lulu Lavender again, and do an all-around wash. That'll soften that Lilac Posies just enough so it gives us the dimension we're looking for, but not so strong. So now let's move on to the leaves. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to start out with our Pear Tart and we're just going to lay that on all the leaves. And then I'll go back in with a new sprout, which is a little bit duller. It's lighter, but it's a little more deeper green. The other one has a little more yellow in it. So that'll create some nice contrast in our leaves. So that's it. We're done with the watercoloring. It's not super quick and easy. So all we're going to do now is remove the panel from our board. And I'm going to go ahead and do a little heat setting of it. Just a tad on the back. I don't want to overheat it because then it melts our embossing powder again. So here's a quick little close-up of our Resist, and then you can our Irresistible spray, and it gives you that nice texture. I'll show you again in a little bit some more details. Close-ups. Okay, so let's go ahead and start layering and putting our cards together. We're going to start with our layering cardstock, and I'm going to adhere this to our card base. And I have some Tart tape all around here. And I only removed just a portion of my tape backing, so this helps me center my card panel onto my base. Once I have that as straight as possible, because I never get it straight, I'm going to go ahead and press that down. So now I'm going to adhere, using the Tart tape, our craft foam little piece here to the back of our front panel. And I'm just putting some all around. And this is really inexpensive, thin craft foam. I believe I picked this up at the dollar store, the Dollar Tree. But look at your, area and see what you have. I just wanted just a little bit of height, but I didn't want to use a lot of foam tape. So this worked out really well. So I have a little bit of overhang. I'm just going to trim off there because I didn't quite center it, but that's okay. Trim off the excess, and now I know I want to place my flower right there in the center. So I'm going to add some more Tart tape to the back of my panel so that I can adhere my flowers. Just putting a few strips here and there, just enough to get the panel to stick. And this watercoloring technique is so fast and easy. You can do it with any design of stamps you have, whether it's critters, flowers. But I was in the spring kind of mood, so I figured beautiful lavender flowers with a soft, creamy area that gives you that pops off that white is perfect. With those touches of gold. All right, so now I have a little excess here. I'm going to trim that away. And we're going to adhere our card front panel to our card base. I'm going to bring in some on-point glue. Along with our Tart tape, I'm going to use the on-point glue. Why? Because one, it's craft foam and I want to make sure it sticks. And two, the wet glue gives me a little wiggle room, so make sure I center my card panel on my card base. Once I have that all firm in place, you can call it done here because there's plenty of dimension and shimmer, but I want to go ahead and add a few more embellishments. So I'm going to bring in 3 little jewel gems here in like a nice creamy color, and some tiny little gold hearts. I'm going to use the on-point glue to adhere all my embellishments. I'm just going in basically a triangle of clusters of 3 by our sentiment to the left of our flower and to the top. Reason why I put it to the top is I had a little smear of my Irresistible spray there, and so that little gem helps cover it up. So here's all the beautiful dimension we have from not only the embossing but the Irresistible spray. The soft colors coordinate beautifully with our cardstock, and it's a nice and quick and easy flower. So floral card. Let's go over what we use. We use Tart tape, on-point glue, Irresistible craft spray in gold, embossing powder in gold, VersaMark Ink, Lulu Lavender, Memento Ink, Lilac Posy, Pear Tart, and New Sprout Ink, and of course our Altenew stamp set called Rosie Posy to create this wonderful card. Like always, I will have everything listed in the description box below. I hope you found some inspiration today. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more inspiration.